Hi everybody, welcome to my June TBR. So, as I film this, and leading up to this, protests have been occurring across the nation and the world, pushing back against police brutality, the murder of George Floyd, and a century's worth of racial injustices. I can't pretend that I can sit here and film like everything is fine, because it's not. There is a lot going on. But to be clear, everything that's going on isn't new. The things you're hearing about, they've always been happening. The difference is that we're being forced to pay attention now. I talk about it not because I have all the answers, not because I know the right thing to say, but because I can't sit on this platform and pretend like it's not happening and stay silent. The best way that I've heard others describe it is silence is complicity. That's why I would encourage you to speak up when you see people being racist, when you see people saying the wrong things. Speak up and support the Black Lives Movement. Support them financially through petitions, through other means that are available to us. If I haven't already said it, links will be provided below on how you could possibly do that. But with that in mind, with everything that's going on, I made the decision to do a blackout of my TBR when I'm reading exclusively Black authors and Black narratives. This was inspired by Books with Shay, who was doing a blackout buddy read for White Rage and White Fragility, both nonfiction books about racism in America. I will definitely be participating in that. I'm reading White Rage for sure. White Fragility is a book that I am not yet committed to reading just yet. I would encourage you to participate and at least read one of them. The reason I'm not reading both is because I have other books on my TBR that I would like to get to. If I get through everything, I will definitely read White Fragility. But with that said, after watching her video, I decided to basically scrap the TBR that I had to read exclusively authors of color with a focus on the Black experience, not just to bring attention to it in this moment, which I do think is necessary, but also to educate myself. Now, I don't mean to pretend like now is the time to show you're an ally. Like, this is something that we should be doing at all times, not just now. But if there's ever a time to do this sort of blackout, to just bring attention to it, to basically highlight what is already happening, now is the time. And that's why I've chosen to do this. I know it doesn't solve anything. I know it doesn't fix any problems. I don't mean to pretend like I have all the answers, because I don't. But I have a platform and I'm going to use it. That's the best I could say. So let's just go through the rest of the books on my TBR. The first one is going to be the first book in the Inheritance trilogy by N.K. Jemisin. I tried to read this back in February, but I didn't get to it, I didn't have time. I've only read one of the book by N.K. Jemisin. That was the 5th season. And when I read that, I didn't much love it, but part of that I think was because of my own reading comprehension. And I had been wanting to go back to her and reread that, because I think I'm in a better position now to appreciate everything that's there. It was a very dense book. There was a lot to take in, a lot of world building that I don't think I truly appreciated. I've actually ordered a bunch more by N.K. Jemisin. Her 5th season trilogy, I think the second book in this trilogy, as well as maybe the first 2 of her science fiction trilogy that she has outside of those, and her new short story collection as well. So I'm excited to be getting to this. I'm really hoping I like it. I'll be very disappointed if I don't. The next book is one of the couple books that I already had on my TBR before I decided to shake things up, and that is Harriet Tubman, Portrait of an American Hero Bound for the Promised Land by Kate Clifford Larson. This is, as it sounds, a nonfiction biography about Harriet Tubman. And I bought this back in January after I watched the movie and was inspired to read books about her. She was someone that I first learned about in elementary school, and I remember her, I don't remember what book it was, but I read some short children's fiction book about her experience. I remember being touched by it so much. The next one is a book by Tananarive Due, Joplin's Ghost. I read Janet Tananarive Due's The Good House last year. I loved it. She is a new favorite of mine in the horror community, so I wanted to try this one as a ghost story. I don't know if it's going to be scary. It sounds like it might be more of a romance, but in either case, I'm intrigued. This is another one that I wanted to get to in February and didn't have time to do, so I am intrigued. God, I gotta be more creative in how I describe my feelings. I am ecstatic to get to this book. Another book that I'll mention that's by her, which is, I think, My Soul to Take, is the first book in her African Immortal series, which is a vampire series, urban fantasy horror. The first one is at my sister's, so I can only just show you the cover. But if I have time and I get through all of these, I will listen to that as well. The next book is going to be a book that I chose specifically because of everything that's going on. That's going to be Dear Martin, a novel by Nick Stone. And the back says, Justice is a good kid, an honor student, always there to help a friend. So why is he the one in handcuffs? I think it really sums up everything that's going on. In that same realm of thought is going to be a book that I almost read for my last vlog, where I read books in Lala's favorites. The Hate You Give by Angie Thomas, a book that I've been eager to read for the longest time. I was so excited when I got a copy of this, used, such a nice copy, at the Goodwill when I was at home for Christmas. And I'm excited to finally be getting to this. In fact, my book club, we're going to be reading this and talking about it for June. Now, this next book I want to mention, even though it's probably going to be read by me in July, that's Stamped from the Beginning by Ibram X. Kendi. The Definitive History of Racist Ideas in America, nonfiction, pretty thick, but also I imagine a very informative book about how America is basically founded on racism. Honestly, I'm more excited to read this than I am White Rage or White Fragility, but I decided to include this here because there is an Instagram read-along happening. This Instagram read-along, we're going to be reading this book for the last bit of June to early July. Because of that, I'm going to be fitting into my July TBR, but I wanted to mention this to promote the Instagram read-along that's happening, to encourage you to participate. The book is, I think, very sold out, which makes sense considering it's everything that's going on. I got it back on Book Outlet a few months ago, but you can find it on Amazon, obviously, ebook, as well as ebook on Google Play. You can also find it on audiobook on Audible, as well as Google Play audiobooks, and it might be on Scribd. I'm not sure. If not, I mean, you can check your local libraries, but it's there if you want to participate. The same is true, I think, for White Rage and White Fragility, both of which are, I'm pretty sure, are on Scribd. Okay, I need to add one more book that I just found out about. The book is called They Said This Would Be Fun, Race, Campus Life, and Growing Up by Eternity Martis. Eternity Martis was a undergraduate student at the University of Western Ontario here in London, Ontario. If you don't know, that is the school that I attend. I am a graduate student here. This is her memoir of her time here at Western and the racism and sexism that she had to endure while here. I saw an article that was like 5 years old now, where she talks about this experience, and I was surprised, even though I really shouldn't be, because as someone from the South, it's really easy to come up here to this place where there's not much diversity. That's something I've always been aware of. But because of that, it's also harder to see the discrimination occurring as a white man. Obviously, that's the definition of privilege. In this book, she talks about her experience, and based off a little bit that I read in the article she wrote, I imagine it's going to be a very profound and hard to read book. But it's one that I absolutely will be reading, probably dedicating an entire video to, because one thing I have noticed, despite my privilege as a white man, is the severe rape culture that exists here at Western. It is a prevalent problem that seems to just go unaddressed. The school will react when really pushed, but they lack any real prevention. They don't force their students to get educated. There was so much shaming and demeaning by the male students. Many of the male students in my own department, some of them even, don't even admit that rape culture is real. They want to deny it. That's how uneducated they are on the subject. And so to imagine then with that, on top of the fact that she has to deal with racism, don't know, that's called intersectional feminism. I can only imagine how bad this must be. And so I'm going to be reading this to hear her story and to share it, but also because I want to learn more about my school. I need to see the darkest side, especially since the school really doesn't want us to hear it. And of course, to force my colleagues to hear it. There's not enough conversation about toxic masculinity, rape culture, or racism even. So yeah, I'll be reading this book this month, and I look forward to sharing my experience reading that book. I did not expect to find a book that hits so close to home, literally. With all that said, those are the books I'm reading for June. Now, full disclosure, while I call this a blackout, I should be clear, I am still participating in the Queerlit Readathon the first week of June. That is a week's worth of reading that isn't going to be Black authors, or at least not exclusively. And the last week of June I have dedicated to reading NetGalley reviews. But yeah, so that's what I'm reading. I think it's going to be a very good reading month as far as having very engaging reads. And I encourage you to remember to participate in Books with Shay's Blackout Readathon and the buddy read of Stamped from the Beginning. all of which will be linked above, below, everywhere you can imagine. The last thing I'll say is that the reason you need to read these books, the reason you need to actively seek out this information is because you need to hear Black voices. I will link some of my favorite Black booktubers below. Of course, Books with Shay is one of those. I noticed you had a huge boost in subscribers, and that made me very happy. But there are others who I still think don't get enough attention. And I'm sure there are more than the ones I've seen. Promote those below if you'd like. I hope you have a great reading month, and I hope you all are staying very safe. I know it's a very, very tough time for everyone, and I think it's safe to say that you're allowed to break away from it. You're allowed to have time for your own mental health. Goodbye.